broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, Robots in Disguise fans, and welcome to I hesitate to say a very special episode of the Robots in Disguise After Show, because boy does that have after-school special connotations. But welcome back, and it is a special episode, because we have the wonderful Adam Beechen with us today.
How are you?
Doing okay, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me here. It's fun.
Of course.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So we have Adam Beechen.
Great.
On the ones and twos, we have Alexis the Wrecker Torres.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And co-hosting, we have Emma the Speedster Fyffe.
Hello.
Megan Lord Megantron Salinas.
Do as I command.
And I am Katie Kia Prime Cullen. Now, as you all know, we did not have an episode this week, or we did, but it was a rerun of the second part of the pilot. So if you watched it again, good for you, supporting the show. So we don't have any recapping to do. Instead, we have Adam Beechen, who is the head writer and producer for this series, in with us to talk about the show.
Here I am.
So welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Oh, so
Yes. Twitter.
Thank you for reminding me. We do have a hashtag. It is ABTVRID if you are watching the live stream, which thank you if you are. Feel free to tweet at us. Use the hashtag. Everyone go around, give your Twitter handles. Adam?
Sure. I'm at Sonova, SONNOVA.
Oh, that's
Son of a Beechen.
Oh, that makes so much sense now, because when I looked for you on Twitter earlier, I was like, Sonova? What's
Yeah.
this?
Pronouncing it too.
I get that a lot.
And you can find me on Twitter very creatively at Emma Fyffe.
You can find me on Twitter at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin.
And I'm at Kiaxet, KIAXET. Alexis?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at atorres890.
So again, if you have any questions for Adam, tweet them in. Use the ABTVRID hashtag. We will be keeping an eye on it. So I'm going to give you a super general question to start with.
Cool.
What's it like working on Robots in Disguise?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's a privilege, really. I mean, it's such an important franchise, such a franchise that carries so many great fans and such a wonderful history that to be a part of it on any level really is a treat.
Now, did you work on Prime as well?
I didn't. No,
You
I came
didn't?
aboard with Robots in Disguise. On Disguise? Who are these guys?
It's a series about robots talking about disguises.
Yes.
It's robots on disguise.
It's a fashion show,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
And they're going to guest on the new cosplay series we have on Popcorn Talk.
Exactly.
So what's it like working on the sequel then, as opposed to the original installment? How did getting into that work?
I'm not sure that I would call it really a sequel. The show is really its own creature. While it takes place after the events of Prime, we really wanted to do a show where you didn't have to know 30 years of history or even the whole history of Prime. We wanted shows that could stand on their own and characters that could be their own characters. So I think it's really more its own beast than it is a sequel. And so being a part of it in terms of its creation, getting to develop those characters, develop the mythology, develop the world, is always a writer's dream, to be as much a part of that kind of stuff as you can be.
So speaking of world development, we had a good number of questions about this last week.
Sure.
What is going on Cybertron? Will we ever see what happened to it, what it's become?
You will get a lot of hints about it, that's for sure. For the bulk of the action of the show is going to take place on Earth.
Yeah.
But you will be hearing from time to time what's going on Cybertron.
But the odds of us getting actual scenes on there?
You know, I'm not a gambling person.
I think that's the best evasive answer I've heard in a well done.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, because there's so, granted, Prime was a little bit of a reboot. There's so much history with the Transformers just as a franchise.
Sure.
I wanted to know what's the biggest challenge in trying to make everything compartmentalized in your own series while still kind of giving people fan service or staying true to the mythology.
You know, I think it's making sure that we don't cross something that has been done before or been said before. And fortunately, the redoubtable Margaret Scott worked on our show, and she is a repository of all things Transformers.
It's amazing.
Margaret wrote on the show. She was a terrific resource for us, in addition to being a terrific writer. And so when we had any questions, we would just go, Margaret? And she would give us an answer. Well, in season 6, episode 1, minute 14, she would tell us exactly what had happened.
So
And
she just has a database in her head.
yeah, it's unbelievable. And so as long as we were really careful about our P's and Q's, we weren't too worried. So hopefully, I mean, I'm sure that there are little slip-ups here and there, and people will find them and let me know. But we really did do our best not to try to violate any existing continuity.
I was going to ask, obviously there is so much Transformers history. Were you a Transformers fan before you got involved specifically in this project?
You know, admittedly, I really wasn't. It was really fun to come aboard and learn all of it.
Yeah.
I was a Voltron guy.
Okay.
I was
The other robots.
It had Peter Cullen in it.
Right.
It's okay.
It
I
did.
I was a Robotech guy.
Oh, yeah.
I was a Micronauts guy. So switching from one kind of robot to another was great for me. But learning about the history of the Transformers and then meeting some of the people who have played some of the Transformers has been really amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Actually, at work, one time we had a Make-A-Wish kid who his wish was to meet the voice of Optimus Prime. And so Peter Cullen came into the VIP lounge at Universal Studios where I work, and I was like, it was like seeing this god. I mean, he has been involved in Transformers from the beginning.
Could not meet a nicer guy, too.
Yeah.
He's terrific. He
Meeting
really
that
is.
man is on my bucket list. I've been asked if I'm related to him because we have the same last name. So it's like, I'd like to think so.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, the first time I was in the recording booth or recording studio with Peter, and he said, Bumblebee. Chills. I had chills, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It's really fantastic.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, just speaking of the voice actors on the show, do you guys typically do group reads or group table reads before individual recording, or do you have to record everybody individually because of scheduling?
We record everybody together as much as possible. Sometimes with the schedules, it's not all that possible, so we do it patchwork. But by far, our preferred method is to have everybody all at the same time. We don't really do a table read before every script. We do before the first script of the year or of the season, so that everybody can get to know each other. But there's just not enough time to have one for every episode. The actors just don't have that kind of time in their schedule.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what aspect of the series do you enjoy writing the most?
The interplay between the characters.
Banter!
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of writers would say that. But especially when you're dealing with new characters and you're finding their voices, getting a chance to have those first couple exchanges between all the characters really sets the tone. And then developing that over the course of a season or a course of a series is really great. It's fun to see those voices develop.
Who do you think is the most difficult to write for?
I thought you were going to say who's the most difficult actor.
Yes, give us all the dirt. No.
That too.
I think probably the one that I had the hardest time finding an angle on was Optimus. Because Optimus is so set, and everybody knows what Optimus is and who Optimus is.
Yes.
It's hard to find a new angle on the relationship between Bumblebee and Optimus. And also to find something to explore in Optimus's character that maybe hasn't been explored before.
Yeah.
So we may well see him again then.
I'm not a betting man. No, I would say that Optimus was a presence in the pilot episode, and we'd be silly not to continue to at least have him be a part of the show on some level. So yeah.
I was going to say that I noticed looking at your IMDb that you've written for a lot of more juvenile kids shows. Is it just you enjoy then getting the chance with a show like this? Because I feel like the characters, particularly on Robots in Disguise, and very much so in Prime as well, they're so three-dimensional.
Sure.
So do you enjoy getting the chance to write those more sort of complex characters, if you will?
Well, I've written on a lot of different kinds of shows.
Yeah.
And I've written everything from X-Men and
Yes, I
Batman
saw
and
that.
Batman Brave and the Bold. So
Yeah.
not everything has been for younger viewers.
Right.
With something like Robots in Disguise, which is meant to be a bridge between the age ranges for Rescue
Bots, yeah.
and Prime, that's pretty well in the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You know, I do like the chance to write for older kids, but there's fun to be had writing for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's really part of the fun is the challenge of figuring out your audience and what they want to see and what they respond to. And I love taking on that challenge with any show that I write for.
So following that, what would you like the audience to get out of Robots in Disguise?
A good time. We just want them to have fun, enjoy the show, maybe experience a Transformers that has a little bit of a lighter tone, and yet serves as a natural bridge, like I was saying, between the two series. We want the kids who've been watching Rescue Bots to graduate to watching our show and really feel like they're still at home.
You want to get a little action in before they get into Prime and have their hearts broken.
Right? Yes. Yeah, we want them still to enjoy.
Yeah.
Not that everybody didn't enjoy Prime, but it's a different kind of enjoyment.
Oh, we enjoyed Prime, but it destroyed us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
In the best kind of way.
Yeah, no, we really super enjoyed it, but there are some episodes you don't watch if you just want to veg on the couch.
Well, you know what? That's the mark of good writing. That you guys were that invested in the characters. And that's a testament to Steve Melching and Marcia Griffin and all the people who were part of writing that show, Dwayne Capizzi. And hopefully we can build that same kind of investment with our show. That's really a goal of ours.
Speaking of the writers, we talked to Jeff Klein a couple weeks ago, and he talked about assembling the team for Prime. What was it like assembling the team for Robots in Disguise?
Well, the team was actually pretty much assembled before I got there. Jeff called me in. The show had been mostly developed. And then I came aboard and tinkered with the pilot some. You saw the credit was shared between Dwayne and I. And then sort of from there was able to add my imprint to it a little bit. Steve Melching was on board as a story editor. Merrick was on board with us. Mike Ryan, another very accomplished animation writer, was on board with us. And then midway through the season, Mike moved on to other things, and Guy Tobis joined us. And Guy is also a very accomplished writer. And it was pretty seamless. We would go out to lunch once a week to Hamburger Hamlet and sit and talk robots, come up with a basic idea for the next episode, and one of us would go away and write the premise for it, come back in, and we'd start to develop it.
And you've written this upcoming episode that'll be airing this week, haven't you?
I did, yeah. We wanted to get a little bit ahead of the schedule if we could, because we were a bit behind, as every show is when it starts.
As you do.
Always.
So it made a little more sense for me to write the first couple episodes, because then I wouldn't have to be getting that extra level of approval that I would if I had given it to, say, a staff writer or a freelancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of these characters we've seen before. Obviously, we've seen Bumblebee in Prime, and there are previous versions of Grimlock and Sideswipe, and there might be one for Fix-It. I'm not super well versed on my mini-cons. How much does the previous incarnation of the characters play into your interpretation?
I would say more so with Bumblebee than with Grimlock or with Sideswipe. We're pretty much reinventing those characters to meet the needs of our show. With Bumblebee, we're taking a little bit more of the history into account because people are so much more familiar with Bumblebee than they are with some of the more minor characters that you have in the show. But that said, we're not referring to a whole lot of events that have taken place over Bumblebee's centuries of existence. we figure people who are watching and who are really, longtime fans of the show know that stuff. And we want a character that that new viewers can come to clean and feel like they understand pretty quickly.
Okay.
Well, going off of that, there have been one of the questions that we had kind of going into this series is what happened to Bumblebee in the interim between Prime and Robots in Disguise. Why is he just a street cop when he could be doing so much more?
That's an excellent question. So, what's up?
Well, I kind of had that question about the whole team, but B's the only one that we see right now.
It's pretty clear that Cybertron has maybe not become the most hospitable place to Optimus and the people who worked with Optimus during the war. Why that is remains to be seen, but even if you'll notice in the scene where Sideswipe is zooming around all the statues, those statues are kind of in disrepair. Yeah. If you notice. So that's another sign that maybe, and if you look at the museum scenes, a lot of that stuff is sort of packed away in a corner. Yeah. It's not exactly on display.
That's true. Actually, that was one comment that we brought up last week about the Space Bridge, was that we're like, why is it tucked away in the back corner of a museum?
That's why is it still functional?
It's almost like they're trying to forget that stuff happened.
Yeah. It's like, thanks for giving us our planet back. We don't need you anymore. Get lost.
Yeah. Don't let the door hit you in the tailpipe on the way out.
Exactly.
Jeez. Wow.
I was also wondering, just because you were talking about your team earlier, I wanted to know, is that what the normal brainstorming sessions look like? Is just talking robots over burgers?
It's different for every show. For us, we found that was the most creative way to develop new stories, was to do it on a full stomach. And also, Hamburger Hamlet at that time served Mr. Pibb, which was a great creative lubricant for me. So, yeah. It was normal for us. Let's just say that.
Alexis, have you got anything?
I do.
Now that we put you on the spot?
Right? I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Since I know you've worked on a lot of my favorite cartoons back in the day, how do you feel about cartoons from like the 90s like to now?
Oh, I think the development of animation techniques have made the cartoons from the 90s to now so much more vivid and so much more full than the cartoons that came before it. It's an amazing universe that has been created for all these cartoons. The way characters move, the facial expressions, the amount of emotion that you can get out of a character. Not to mention the combat sequences. I mean, it really just flows. It's unbelievable. It's a great time to be working in animation.
I feel like also as the animation has gotten more sophisticated, so too has the writing. Not that the writing previous to the sophisticated animation we're seeing now wasn't good. It's just I think people are starting to acknowledge now, like, that some animated series, particularly ones like, I don't know, Transformers Prime, are legitimate pieces of art and
media.
Exactly.
It's not all SpongeBob and Chowder anymore.
I think you're right. I think there's an acknowledgement, and even in cases like SpongeBob, there's an acknowledgement that there are viewers who are not little kids.
Yes.
And so there are more shows that can speak to both levels of audience.
Yes.
Like I think it's perfectly perfectly good to watch the SpongeBob episode as an adult, and you can get something out of it. It's funny that maybe a kid would find in a different way to be funny.
Yeah.
And hopefully we do that with Robots in Disguise. We want to be effective on a bunch of different levels if we can.
I feel Rescue Bots has mastered that art.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love Rescue Bots, even though that was absolutely intended to be for littler
6-year-olds.
children. Yeah, for little children. It's very colorful. It's very fun. It's a lot of vehicles and images.
They don't mention the war. The word Decepticon literally never comes up.
Well, you say it's expressly for the younger viewers, but the people at Hasbro and the people working on the show know that we're watching.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure we're entertained too.
Well, and that's brilliant because I mean, 9 times out of 10, I feel like parents are watching shows with their kids, and so there is a sort of legitimacy when they can also get enjoyment out of it. And that's something that I feel Robots in Disguise is doing very well. I find the characters on Robots in Disguise to be so complex and compelling. I love Sideswipe and what you guys are doing with him and his whole anti-hero kind of bad boy anime hair
peer pressure.
No, I'm not just saying that like because you're sitting next to me. Like I am totally into Sideswipe. And also Strong Arm. I love how I feel like she is the opposite trope of RC. RC is this very like hardened and battle weary kind of cold lady, and like I love that Strong Arm, you went for the approach of having her be this really enthusiastic do-gooder.
I think Strong Arm aspires to be hardened and the veteran, the tough veteran,
exactly.
And she's just not there yet.
Nope.
And so as we go along in the course of the season and she learns a little bit more about what she's doing and about how she's operating with other people, it's really fun to see how that character grows and changes over the course of the season. And Constance Zimmer, who does the voice, is absolutely fantastic. She brought so much to the character that really informed the writing as the season went along. And that happened with every character. It happened with Darren Criss. It happened with Mitchell Whitfield. It happened with Will Friedle. I mean, anybody who worked on the show, Kari Payton, all those characters, all those actors brought something to the character that really helped us build them into something else.
So you guys tailor the character, or at least their voice for the character, when the voice actors actually come in.
Oh yeah, when the actors are that good, you'd be foolish not to. Do
you have specific examples of aspects that you've incorporated from the actor into the character?
Sure. Constance hasn't done a whole lot of voiceover work, maybe. So I think she was maybe a little bit hesitant in the pilot, and we were able to make that into something in the course of the visuals. I don't know if you know, I think I tweeted about this during the live tweet. My favorite moment in the whole pilot is when she runs past Bumblebee to get into the action and she's hopping up and down. Yes! And that was totally informed informed by the amount of excitement in Constance's voice when she, is saying those lines. And we find moments like that for every character.
Nice.
How much of the show had been written by the time you did actually start recording episodes? Because you say that, you actually had worked with the actors and had the chance to have their acting inform where the writing kind of went.
I mean, how many episodes?
Yeah, how many episodes had you written?
Before the first one was recorded?
Yeah, before the first one was recorded. With the actors.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think we were probably in the teens.
Okay.
We had written a fair number by that point.
Excellent.
Are you guys done with the first season, or is season 1 still in production?
Season 1 is done with production.
My follow-up question
Certainly
to
on
that.
certainly on the writing end. There may be stuff going on still on the technical sides.
Okay.
I think we can all say this. Season 2?
You can
be my
indeed
question.
say that. You say that very well.
Whether or not it's
Season
true.
You say that very well.
My follow-up question was, since, at least from a writing perspective, everything for season 1 is done, without giving away any spoilers, what episode number are you looking most forward to fan reactions?
Wow. It's been a while since we worked on these episodes, so it's hard to remember which numbers there are.
You can just tell us
Is
what
it
happens
like
then.
beginning season, mid-season, season finale?
No, I mean, the show, I think, gets better with every episode. So certainly by the end of the season, the shows are amazing. And they're already amazing, but I think they just get better. I want to say that episode 19 is one that we all like, but again, it's been so long, I'm not sure if I'm referring to the right episode. So you'll just have to watch them all and judge for yourself.
So 19
Like we're not going to already.
Right. Captive audience.
All right, I've got a few questions here.
All right.
A lot of my friends who are fans of the cartoons that you've worked on, have a favorite project or TV show you worked on?
I grew up reading comic books, and I still read comic books. I wrote comic books for a while. So the chance to work on existing comic book properties was a huge deal for me. Getting a chance to work on any of the Batman shows was a big deal. Working on X-Men was a big deal. Those are a treat. To get a chance to put words in the mouth of characters that you've loved for, X number of years, and I'm not going to give away my age.
A while.
Is a real treat. And it's a gift, to play in that sandbox, which taught me how to read and taught me how to imagine. It's great fun.
Is there a character that you haven't worked on that you would like to take a crack at?
Oh gosh, yeah. I have not worked on a lot of animated Marvel shows.
Okay.
And of course, I've loved Marvel characters as much as I've loved DC characters throughout my whole life. So, and some of the stuff the Marvel people are doing right now is really fantastic and amazing, and playing off of storylines that I remember when I was a kid. So a chance to work on some of those characters would be really neat.
All right. And favorite superhero, I had to ask.
I'm an Aquaman fan.
Sweet.
And I got into an argument with somebody over that this morning over breakfast.
What? He gets a lot of hate.
Making the guy is king of 2/3 of the world.
Exactly.
He is not useless. He is a political power. I mean, big time. If you wanted to apply it that way, it could be a really big deal. So I'm a big Aquaman fan. I think there's a lot of potential there. And DC's new take on Aquaman has realized a lot of it very well. But I think there's still so much more to be explored.
Since we are on the topic of comic book characters, and you have written a fair number of comics and graphic novels, what do you find the biggest differences between writing for TV or writing comics?
I think in writing for animation, you're doing a lot of directing on the page, but you do even more in comics, because most of the time you don't know the artist that you're working with. So when you're writing a full script and you see a panel in your head, you have to communicate it pretty clearly on the page with a lot of detail. That said, I always tell the artist, once I find out who they are, that if they can think of a better way to draw a panel or come up with a page design or whatever than what I've given them, they're more than welcome to do it, because they're the experts in that area. So I tend to write in a lot more detail for comics than I do for animation, but I think animation was great training for comics, because I was used to what we call it calling out shots, describing individual shots and moments in the script.
Yeah. How does that compare with working to storyboarders? Because that is a little bit of a different process.
I haven't worked a lot with storyboarders directly on a storyboard-driven show. All of the shows that I've worked on have been script-driven. So I would love the opportunity to try that. I've worked a little bit that way with comics, where an artist has done layouts, and then I'll be sent the layouts and have to do dialogue over them. But I haven't done that so much in animation.
So then you really have to work on your economy of words when you already have
No
a
kidding.
small amount of space. No
kidding.
It's like Twitter.
When I was first working in comics, I was told it's not really a good idea to have a 16-panel page. And, you want to keep your dialogue balloons to X number of words or lower, just so that the art has room to breathe.
It's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah.
Speaking of animation, we had a big animation shift from Prime to Robots in Disguise.
Right.
What's your take on it?
I think it's great for the audience that is our primary audience. I think that it brings a lighter tone. It brings a little bit more air to the show. But it still conveys the same amount of emotion, the same amount of expression. I think it works for the bridge we're trying to create between the two series.
Is it a little easier to... I'm getting into animation questions here.
Feel free.
Is it a little easier to work with models you have now than with the strict CGI that Prime had? Is there more flexibility?
Well,
with these?
that's hard for me to answer because I didn't work on Prime. But I think that you write not so much to the models as you write to the characters and the personalities that you have outlined already in the episodes that you've done. So the models, while they're fantastic, they aren't really the driving force in coming up with the writing.
Yeah. And you mentioned, of course, that you didn't work on Prime, and obviously, Robots in Disguise has some of the same team members from Prime working on it. How did you wind up being involved in Robots in Disguise?
Jeff Klein and I would run into each other every so often over the years, and we'd catch up and we'd talk about stuff. And Jeff would say, we should work on something sometime. And I would say, you know what, we really should work on something sometime. And then the opportunity came up with Robots in Disguise, and I had done plenty of action adventure shows. And Jeff was kind enough to call me in and ask if I was interested, and what fool wouldn't be? And I just jumped in. And Jeff is a fantastic mentor. His track record, the quality of his shows speaks for itself. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's tough. He's demanding. He wants every episode to be as good as it possibly can be. And he taught me a lot about how to be a producer, stuff that I had never done before. I had never sat in really on storyboard meetings. I had never sat in on different cuts of episodes as they came back from overseas and given notes. I had never been part of the casting process, really, or talking about giving notes on designs. And Jeff taught me all of that stuff. So I'm really grateful to have been a part of this show, because not only was it a great experience working for these characters, but working with Jeff.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you loved comic books when you were a kid. Is that what made you want to get into storytelling, or was there a different kind of aha moment where you're like, that's what I want to do?
It was definitely comics. When I was in grade school, I was writing and drawing my own comics. They're not coming out for publication anytime soon. But I was also writing short stories and whatever. I was writing all the time. I definitely wanted to be a storyteller. I quickly realized I did not know how to draw, and it was not going to get better.
It's okay, I'm right there with you.
It didn't stop me. But I've been writing all along, and always wanted to tell stories for these kinds of characters.
So how did you get into the industry?
I studied journalism as an undergrad, and went into journalism for a couple years after college, and I got tired of telling other people's stories. I had stories that I wanted to tell that I thought were my own. So I went to film school at the University of Texas, got a degree in screenwriting, and moved out to Los Angeles and figured I would give it X number of years to break in or make some forward progress. And if I didn't, I would go right back to Texas and do something else. And I'm still here. My first job was writing for a primetime soap opera for Aaron Spelling. It was called Savannah. That show was canceled before I could get a script to write, so I was sort of back out in the street. And it was much easier to get meetings with animation studios in those days than it was with networks.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a little more search for new talent that went on with animation studios. So eventually one of my studios got to somebody's desk at Klasky Chupo. John Hardman and Eric Casimiro, thank you very much. And they liked what they saw, and I was called in and asked if I wanted to write an episode of the Wild Thornberrys.
Oh, nice.
So I wrote an episode of the Wild Thornberrys and was put on staff, and everything has come from that.
That's fantastic.
What's the most difficult part of the writing process for you, and how do you work through it?
Coming up with stories. Really is, because not only is there the hurdle of making sure you're not doing something that is old ground to these shows, you want to come up with something really fresh and something really new that people are going to say, oh yeah, why didn't we think of that? Fortunately, with our characters, coming up with interactions for them was never a problem, but coming up with new bad guys and coming up with new situations, and because you're not just constrained by the history of the show but by the budget of the show. There's only so much you can afford to draw, so many new locations, so many new characters, so you're trying to work within those guidelines, and it can be tough, but we do it.
On a full stomach.
Absolutely. Burger fueled.
Is there a project that you've worked on before that maybe you weren't not exactly happy, I'm not going to say that, but like maybe you've always wanted to change and go back and redo it?
Yeah, if you could reboot one,
Yeah.
what would it be?
That's interesting. Well, I don't know. I mean, the number of shows that I've been the head writer for are really the only ones I can speak to. And I've learned something from every one of those shows, and I think we've done good work on every one of those shows. But not every episode is going to be as good as you want it to be, just because of whatever kinds of circumstances. I worked on a show called Panther and Pals, which I think came out really well, and there are some really, really funny moments, but I see episodes that I wrote for that, and that was a tough show because there was no dialogue.
Yeah.
And now I think with the benefit of a couple years being past that, I see stories that I would go back and try again, and I think I could tell in a better way.
Very nice. Do you have any advice for people who maybe want to go into, writing or working in television or animation or anything like that you
Sure.
could give?
Yeah, I have 3 standard pieces of advice that I give people. One is always be writing something.
Nice.
The second one is to find people whose judgment you trust, and show them your work and get honest opinions back on it. Develop a circle of people that can comment on your writing, and ideally whose writing you can comment on. And the third thing is that you don't have to move to LA to break into the industry, but it helps to be here to get on people's radar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. If you could tell any story, your own original one or a retelling of an existing franchise, what would you do?
Well, I'm not going to give that away. Come on. I have ideas, like all kinds of ideas. And I'm hopefully going to get a chance to tell all those stories at some point in some form. I have ideas that are better suited for comics than they are for television. I have ideas that are better suited for film. And, they line up like planes on a runway. And you just hope you can get to them all.
That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to all of them.
Well, and following up on that, you say you have some stories that are better for comics and some stories that are better for television, animation, what have you. How do you know the difference, like when it pops into your head?
Sure. With comics, you have an unlimited budget. Your
nice.
budget is the artist's wrist.
So not super unlimited.
Not super. You don't want to say the giant space armada move towards the planet. There are literally millions of ships.
And then they're just
Panel
like,
2.
God,
Draw it digitally, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste.
Right? You don't want to do that, but at the same time, you can have images in comics that you just can't get on television.
Yeah.
That said, talking about the growth in animation over the last bunch of years, there's a lot more that you can show in animation now.
Yeah.
But comics can still give you really big picture stuff.
Yeah. I think that's something that we see nowadays too with like books and movies, and like things like the Lord of the Rings trilogy could have never been made into a movie that anybody in the Tolkien estate would have been happy with until semi-recent years.
Well, and even now they're not super happy.
Yeah, that's true. But it beats the rotoscope version. Yeah. That one's scary.
But you got to admit,
I
that's an
agree.
achievement that they even made
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's a hugely ambitious project to be
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings.
But that doesn't make it any less terrifying.
Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley.
But you
yeah.
acknowledge the effort.
Yes.
Indeed, and
you
there
go.
was a lot of it.
Right.
Well, and just talking about stuff that's on TV right now, stuff like Game of Thrones, like George R.R. Martin specifically stopped writing for TV because they kept telling him these scripts are unproducible.
And yet his scripts are some of the best episodes that they've done.
Yes, his scripts are amazing.
Yeah.
He always writes the really, really heart-wrenching.
I'd be happy if
One
he
season.
devoted all of his energy to writing more books.
Me too.
That is actually what he's doing. He's not doing an episode this season because he's working on. He's also skipping Comic-Con. Yeah, news and gossip for an entirely different show.
Do I need to hit the button? I'll do it.
Oh no, not the button.
I'm gonna do it.
No.
Whatever he wants to work on is fine with me.
I did it.
Stop that. I thought you were going to hit the off-topic button.
I was gonna hit that next, but I won't do it.
Oh, thanks. Back on topic, kind of. Rephrasing the previous question. If you could work on any existing franchise, reinterpret it however you wanted to, what would you do?
Oh gosh. I was such a huge fan of the Micronauts comic book. When I was a big comic book reader, I would love to get a chance to develop that for television. I think there's so much fun to be had with that concept of a world and that kind of world building. I think it'd be great. I've always loved those characters.
Animated or live action?
Animated. Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
Nice, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
It would be fun.
I know it's especially hard. It's like picking children, but since you've come into Robots in Disguise,
So pick my children.
do you have a favorite Transformer?
That was my question.
Sorry.
Everyone's getting that question.
There are characters that I love all the characters, and I know that's an evasive answer. But there's something fun about every character, something fun to write about every character. That said, I think that as we went along, I became more and more delighted with Grimlock. And how
He's my favorite
and
at
how
this
his
point.
voice developed, and how he became a commentator on the action with a really skewed and fun sense of humor. I think that I hope that viewers are really going to enjoy how Grimlock develops over the course of this first season.
I think based on the reactions that just between our panel and also the people that tuned in last week, like, he is for sure a fan favorite.
Yeah.
We have a soft spot for Grimlock.
And we
And,
all
you know,
want to
and-
know why he was on the ship.
And I
Yes.
take issue with people who say that Grimlock is stupid. I do.
Who says
because
that?
I think
I
that
did. He is not super
I am taking issue.
Take that issue.
I think he just has a really peculiar and individual way of looking at things that is plenty smart in its own way. He's maybe not the most experienced at certain kinds of aspects of interaction, but he's plenty smart in his own way.
I think that's
I
fair.
thought he might be the emotional intelligence of the group.
Yeah.
I think the great thing about our show is that every character can function in that way at some point. I think Fix-It does that a lot. I think Russell does that a lot. I think, even a character who tries to be as emotionally distant as Sideswipe can bring some level of that to each episode.
You can only be too cool for school for so long.
Well, he stays pretty cool. He stays pretty cool all season, I gotta say.
I'm sorry, Darren Chris anime hair. That we know what
It's
we're getting
amazing.
into with
I
this
That
love
hair is
episode.
awesome. Unbelievable.
Sideswipe is perfect.
Yeah.
A robot with anime hair.
Yeah.
Japan is obviously already in love with this series.
And he has
Yep.
seatbelts.
Oh, yeah.
Why does he have seatbelts?
I'm okay with that.
It has to do with the time lag between the previous series and this series, and the changes in the vehicle safety code on Cybertron.
He's riding in a... No, I'm not going to go down there. That is a rabbit hole that I don't need to go down to. Partially because I think you're going to give me vague non-answers.
Of course, I just made that one up on the fly.
I know.
Okay.
So obviously with the Transformers, you got to interpret these already existing characters. Now, how is it different with the human characters? Because you guys created the human characters
That's
for
correct.
this show, correct?
Yeah.
So you had a blank slate there.
A little bit. When I came on board, Russell and Denny had already been created.
Okay.
And the basic relationship of kid coming to live with his father after several years apart, that was already there.
Mm-hmm.
But coming up with who Denny was and why he has this crazy scrapyard and why he never seems to sell anything and
Where does his income come from?
that's a really good question.
Alimony.
He's got such a rich girlfriend. No, I don't know. I made that up too.
Was it a trust? We don't know.
I don't know. Maybe he has a separate stash of stuff that he actually sells, and then the bulk of it is the stuff that he collects. I don't know. But coming up with that, reasons for that, and also, we didn't want Russell to be a character that's always saying, "Oh, Dad," in every episode. So showing him getting closer to Denny as you go along brought out a lot of fun stuff in Russell, and how much he loves participating in these adventures, and how much he loves these robots that have come to be with them, and it's a lot of fun. And Stuart Allen, who plays Russell, and Ted McGinley, who plays Denny, are fantastic together. They really have great chemistry, and they're really fun to work with. And Stuart has gone on to do a whole bunch of stuff, including a Batman versus Robin
Oh, that's
video coming out.
fantastic. Yeah, they're showing that at WonderCon next weekend. I'm planning on going to see it.
And Ted is a very experienced actor who's worked on a ton of different shows, and just working with them was really amazing.
That's awesome. And I have to ask, since there is a diner in this junkyard, did Denny's
Denny's.
name come from there?
I'm going to honestly tell you that never occurred to me.
Sweet, we stumped him, guys.
I don't know.
He has his own personal Denny's.
He
And
does.
it didn't come up.
I'm so mad we didn't put that into a script.
Season 2.
There's more stories to tell. There's more stories to tell.
Sweet.
So, at the panel last year at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm pulling way back from this one, there was talk about potentially bringing in some of the other characters from Prime if Robots in Disguise gets a season 2. Is that potentially still on the table?
That is potentially still on the table. Like I said, while we're not making it the focus of our series that we are connected to 30 years of Transformers history, that's also a benefit that we are connected to 30 years of Transformers history, because we have all these wonderful characters we can pull from and bring in if we choose. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of seeing, faces that are familiar.
Okay. If it's possible to say so without giving anything away for season 1, is there anything you guys didn't get to that you would maybe like to tackle in season 2?
No.
Absolutely no way of saying
because you don't know how long a show is going to be around. You don't leave any ideas in the hopper. If it's a good idea, you make it into an episode. And so each episode that we came up with was, the best thing we could think of at that time. And I think I've told a lot of really good stories with those. And that said, if there are more stories to tell, certainly at the end of a season 1, that would be great for a season 2. We've got these wonderful characters. We've now explored them. We know their relationships. Let's build on that. So, there's plenty more stories to tell. Always plenty more stories to tell.
That's a good
But you
answer.
don't believe in a cliffhanger season finale unless you're confirmed for another season.
I'm sorry, I don't believe in them?
Yeah.
I believe in everything. I believe in whatever entertains the viewers. I believe in keeping viewers hooked.
Oh boy. That doesn't bode well.
I have a bad feeling about this, guys.
I think we all do. We know on YouTube you said that, and you've said before that you want to keep it a little bit more lighthearted. You have to understand, it's hard to believe that.
When we've been trained on Prime.
I totally get that. You have to remember that this show is intended for a younger, immediate target audience. We want the show to be great for people who are of an older generation who remember previous shows, but it's really for people who are coming off of Rescue Bots and new viewers. We want more people to get involved in the Transformers universe.
All right. So have we seen any pieces of the long game for this series of the overarching plot?
You bet.
All right. I wanted
You bet.
confirmation because I know if I ask you what they are, it's not going to go anywhere.
No, I'm happy to tell you stuff.
Please.
Some stuff. The pilot sets up a lot of it. I mean, there's a prison ship that crashed on Earth. What prison ship? Yep. Why? This is the first we've heard of prison ships.
Yeah.
Who are these characters that are on this prison ship? Why did it crash?
How long has it been out there?
How long was it out there? Why did it crash? What is up with Optimus?
He's just Mufasa out there right now.
My notes from last week are literally like, "Oh, he's not dead. No, he's definitely dead. Is he dead?
We
he doesn't know."
We wouldn't introduce Optimus like that in a pilot episode and not tell you anything more.
This is true.
Oh, good. He doesn't know anything more is a little worrying.
Interesting, isn't it?
It's very
So
intriguing.
some of those questions you will get answers to.
I wanted to ask, we haven't seen a whole lot of our Decepticons out there quite yet.
Not yet.
We've only seen one Decepticon, and we've seen silhouettes of the other ones.
Underbite. Consumer of Nuon City.
Who?
Underbite, who apparently needs a new PR agent because nobody recognizes him.
That's why we were asking how long they've been out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But that made me laugh so hard that he thought everyone should know who he was.
Yeah, he's a big star in his own mind. You bet.
Grimlock knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's really wondering about Grimlock and why he was on that Decepticon ship, and was he tricked into being a Decepticon because he seems to have a really big heart, and
He's just so
Grimlock loves
enthusiastic.
fighting.
yeah.
He seems like he would be either the muscle or the fall guy for some sort of operation.
Grimlock loves fighting. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Given his first few lines of dialogue
Yeah.
were essentially that.
Yeah.
Really looking forward
Going
to
back
it.
to the Decepticons,
Sure.
you mentioned that it was kind of difficult to find voices for all these characters. Was it difficult finding voices for different Decepticons? Because we don't know if they're a team or if they're all going to be free agents.
Right.
And we don't have Megatron to immediately fall back on for this one, or
That's right.
Starscream.
That's right.
Because goodness knows if either of them are still alive.
That's right.
Fingers crossed.
Goodness knows. And I suspect you should have Goodness as a guest on your next episode.
Dish.
If you can give me their information, I
Sure.
would love to speak with Goodness.
Goodness can be found everywhere. Yes, it is hard finding voices for all those Decepticons because you want them all to have different crimes that they've committed, different motivations, different things that they want in a given episode. So it's tricky, and you want to find out which characters, and you're not going to know until they air, are the ones that fans really want to see more of. So you try to develop all these characters as though they could sustain their own series almost. You want them all to have that kind of depth, whether they're heroes or villains. So it's a lot of work.
And when do you make the decision to make them more menacing or to make them more like Underbite, who can do a lot of damage, but you're also laughing at him a lot?
And we've seen the clips of Bisk, and Bisk is, Bisk.
I am so proud of that name.
It's really great.
I can't begin to tell you how proud
For
I am
those
of that
watching
name.
at home who don't know who we're talking about, Bisk is the lobster.
Yeah, and in the script it's B-I-S-K.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're all hopefully menacing while having a comedic element to them. We want them to be funny, but not to the point where you're not concerned that they're going to step on somebody and squash them flat. So hopefully they all carry a certain amount of violent potential, but at the same time you can giggle at them for being weird or stupid or silly or whatever.
Or a star in their own
Bisk.
mind.
Bisk.
Or a giant lobster.
Or you can laugh at them for being lobsters.
Lobsters who are D&D obsessed.
Isn't that awesome?
That's
I love
pretty
that.
amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. That was a great script.
We are really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, do you have any projects that you're working on that you can tell us about that you'd like people to know about?
Unfortunately, I can't talk about a lot of the things that I'm working on, just because they haven't been made public by whoever is backing them. But I am
NDA o'clock?
Yeah, exactly. But I am working on projects both for television and for comics, and excited for all of them. Some of them are original, and some are existing properties that I'm really thrilled to be working on. Awesome. So staying busy.
Well, in a wonderfully vague way, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Looking forward to them.
It is.
All right, you guys have any last questions?
I think you guys have covered
Yeah.
it pretty well.
I
Anything
feel
from
good
the
about
booth?
this.
Nothing from the booth, guys.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in. Where can the
Thanks for
people
having
find
me.
you online?
I am on Twitter at @Sonova, SONNOVA.
I am on Twitter at Emma Fyffe. I'm also on Instagram at Emma Fyffe and on Facebook and Pinterest and just Emma Fyffe anywhere Emma Fyffes are found.
At your local Emma Fyffe dealer.
EmmaFyffe.com.
And I'm Megan. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm also on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz, and I've also started writing articles for the Movie Chicks, so be sure to go online and check those out.
Alexis?
You can find me all over the interwebs as ATorres890. You can also follow me on YouTube. I will be doing vlogs daily or weekly at youtube.com/PS890.
And I'm Katie Cullen. You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at Kiaxet. That's KIAXET. I am also on the Arrow After Show on Wednesdays. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I
And
really appreciate it.
And we really appreciate you coming. And thank you guys so much for watching. Transform and roll out.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.